What if the Queen just tried to claim the most sacred royal estate for herself only to be stopped cold by the future Queen and the King's sister? Moments ago, Camilla attempted to take full control of Balmoral, but Catherine and Anne immediately blocked her with a united front no one saw coming. Gates locked, access denied, security rewritten, on the spot. This isn't rumour. This is the moment two royal women drew a line around the Crown's most private Scottish home and told the Queen she would never own it. You're about to witness the confrontation that could split the monarchy forever. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine stood firm at the grand iron gates of Balmoral, Anne right beside her like a silent shield, and delivered the words in a voice calm yet unyielding. The estate belonged to the future generation, not to any one person's personal claim. Camilla's face drained of colour in an instant, her usual composure cracking as the reality hit her. The woman who had waited decades for the crown now found herself locked out of the one place that held the family's deepest summer memories, the retreat where every heir had learned to breathe away from London's eyes. No negotiation, no apology, just two future queens standing shoulder to shoulder, refusing to let the past swallow the future. The fallout rippled through the palace in seconds. Charles received the urgent call while reviewing state papers, his hands shaking so violently the receiver nearly slipped as he grasped that his wife and daughter-in-law had united against the Queen in open defiance over the family's beloved Scottish home. The King, who had spent years trying to keep peace between the women he loved, most now faced the brutal truth that the battle lines had been drawn around the very estate that had always symbolised continuity. Catherine's quiet declaration cut deepest of all. She told Camilla Balmoral was a place of family memory, not personal claim, and Anne nodded in silent solidarity, her presence a powerful endorsement no one had anticipated. In that single moment, the future Queen made it clear the traditions she would inherit would not be reshaped by the woman who had waited so long to claim them. The emotional gut punch landed hard on everyone who heard the news. A raw betrayal of unity no one had seen coming from the two women once praised as the monarchy's safest pair of hands. This wasn't a sudden outburst. It followed months of secret meetings where Camilla had allegedly pushed to make Balmoral her personal summer residence, quietly shifting schedules and access codes to make it hers alone. Every delayed reservation, every redirected staff member, every subtle suggestion had been part of a calculated campaign that Catherine and Anne had tracked in silence until the evidence became impossible to ignore. The first leaked memo was already circulating among senior royals. The new Catherine-approved access-only protocol activated the instant the gates were locked, the words spreading like fire through the corridors and threatening to ignite the entire family. Catherine and Anne walked away arm in arm without a backward glance, leaving Camilla alone outside the locked gates. The single key turned in the lock with a decisive click that echoed like a verdict. Balmoral now sealed against the one woman who had tried to make it her own. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. The only sound, the faint echo of footsteps fading down the drive, and the quiet tremor of a single tear finally breaking free. But before we can understand why Catherine and Anne drew this merciless line, we must go back to the private jealousy that turned two future queens into unexpected allies. They once smiled for the cameras and stood side by side at every event. Behind closed doors, Catherine and Anne were quietly aligning against Camilla in a cold war no one saw coming. The new evidence proves the jealousy ran deeper than anyone dared imagine. These are the moments they swore would never see daylight until now. In those early days after Catherine became Duchess of Cambridge, she watched Camilla's influence over royal estates grow with quiet suspicion. Balmoral had always been the family's true summer heartbeat, the place where generations learned to breathe away from London's glare, where children ran free and traditions felt timeless. But Camilla began arriving for longer stays, her presence slowly shifting the rhythm, small requests for exclusive use of certain wings, quiet suggestions to adjust staff schedules, subtle changes that made the estate feel less like shared heritage and more like personal territory. Catherine confided in William one evening in their private quarters at Kensington, voice low and steady, warning that Camilla's rising status would change everything. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The unease was in the quiet certainty of her words. The Scottish retreat she had come to love as a sanctuary was slowly being drawn into someone else's orbit. The first major clash happened far from public eyes. In a private drawing room after a family gathering, Catherine confronted Camilla directly. She accused her of treating Balmoral as her personal domain, of quietly sidelining the next generation by claiming the estate's summer rhythms for herself, while the future queen waited in the wings. The argument stayed controlled voices, never rose above a tense murmur, but the accusation cut deep. Camilla listened in silence, then left without reply, leaving Catherine standing alone with the sting of her own words. From that afternoon forward, the air between them thickened with unspoken hostility, every shared family holiday a performance that hid the growing fracture beneath. Senior aides kept meticulous private notes during those years. Catherine's tension would spike the moment Camilla requested exclusive summer access to Balmoral charts, showed consistent elevations in her stress markers that doctors quietly flagged but never publicized. She refused to discuss it openly, insisting the unease came from something far more fundamental than routine estate visits. The records told their own story. Every mention of Camilla's desire for private time at the estate triggered a measurable reaction, a physical echo of the resentment building inside her. Anne had watched the same pattern unfold for years, and her own private vow crystallized in response. She promised herself she would stand with Catherine and protect Balmoral as the family's true summer home, not a personal retreat. That vow became her anchor, the one unmovable truth she refused to surrender even as the palace tried to present a united front. Anne's decision to align with Catherine was born from decades of quiet observation. The princess who had always guarded tradition now refusing to let it be reshaped by the woman who had waited so long to claim the crown. Hidden devices captured fragments of late-night conversations Catherine thought were private. Her voice dripped with contempt as she dissected Camilla's attempts to claim royal estates as her own, calling them an imposition dressed in tradition, a crown placed where it didn't fully belong. Those recordings, now surfacing, reveal the depth of her bitterness, words chosen carefully yet laced with unmistakable scorn. William overheard pieces of the growing tension during quiet evenings at home. Snatches of sharp exchanges drifted through the house, planting seeds of division that would later bloom into the wider fractures we see today. He watched in uneasy silence as Catherine's quiet disapproval hardened into something unbreakable. Catherine loved the monarchy with fierce devotion, yet that love clashed violently with her absolute refusal to let Camilla reshape the family's most cherished Scottish estate. The inner war tore at her daily loyalty to the crown, warring against loyalty to the traditions she would one day inherit, affection for the family battling principle until the conflict became unbearable. She chose principle. Every time. Catherine's resentment began in whispers, but it soon became a roar that even the palace walls couldn't contain. Behind the perfect smiles and flawless protocol, Camilla allegedly orchestrated a quiet campaign to claim Balmoral as her personal summer residence. The new evidence proves Catherine's stand today was years in the making. These are the moves the palace swore would never see daylight until now. The private dossier Catherine finally laid bare that day was thicker than any security briefing the palace had ever prepared. Page after page documented unscheduled visits Camilla had arranged through back channels, staff quietly redirected to her personal schedule, and calculated summer timetables designed to make Balmoral hers alone. Every entry carried the same chilling pattern, subtle enough to look like innocent grandmotherly affection, deliberate enough to erase the next generation's connection to the estate's sacred memories. Catherine read them again in the dim light of her study, her face hardening with each revelation. until the evidence felt heavier than the crown itself. The emotional gut punch came when she sat Anne down in their private quarters and spoke the words that had haunted her for months. Her voice broke as she described how the moves were designed to wipe away the next generation's link to those ancient stones and heather-covered hills, to turn a place of family memory into a personal retreat for the woman who had waited decades to claim it. Tears welled in her eyes, not from weakness, but from the raw weight of watching the legacy she would one day inherit being quietly rewritten without her consent. Anne listened in stunned silence, her hands tightening around Catherine's as the full scope of the alleged campaign sank in. The conflict escalated the moment Catherine discovered the internal memos hidden in a restricted palace server. Camilla's team had allegedly pushed hard to redecorate and reserve Balmoral exclusively, rewriting summer logs and shifting access so her presence became routine, almost expected. Those memos weren't suggestions, they were blueprints, cold and precise, designed to establish her claim while making Catherine's future role appear secondary. Catherine read them alone at first, her hands tightening around the pages until the paper creased, then carried the evidence straight to the source. Even more damning was the recorded conversation an aide had preserved in secret. Camilla's closest advisor suggested quietly establishing her permanent summer presence at Balmoral, the words spoken with clinical detachment as if discussing a minor adjustment rather than the slow erosion of a sacred family tradition. Catherine played the clip for Anne in that locked room, letting every syllable land like a verdict. The silence that followed was heavier than any denial could have been. Catherine's fierce protection of family tradition ran deeper than duty. She viewed every move in the alleged plot as a direct threat to the future queen's spiritual and emotional legacy, the one estate where reflection and freedom had always transcended titles and power. To her, losing Balmoral wasn't just personal, it was an attack on the monarchy's heart, the quiet continuity that had always defined the family at its best. The palace is already in panic, insiders whispering that Catherine and Anne's united stand could trigger a full royal rift no one can contain. If the future queen and the king's sister are willing to lock out the current queen from Balmoral, what precedent does that set for the rest of the family? The fear is spreading fast, every corridor buzzing with the dread that today's confrontation might unravel more than just access protocols. Yet, even through the rage and refusal, Catherine carried an inner torment that refused to die. In the quiet after she walked out, she admitted to Anne what hurt most. She still respected the crown with everything she had, but she could never accept Balmoral being taken from the next generation. That contradiction burned inside her until the moment she chose to speak, when love for tradition finally collided with the line she would no longer cross. The claim stayed hidden for years, but when the evidence reached Catherine, her fury turned into a stand Anne refused to let her take alone. Anne had always been the crown's quiet guardian. The new testimony confirms her decision to back Catherine against Camilla was born from years of watching sacred estates disappear. One princess's loyalty versus another's ambition, and the entire royal family caught in the crossfire. This is the heartbreak no one saw coming. Alone in the quiet of her private study at Gatcombe Park, Anne sat surrounded by old Balmoral photographs, the same faded images she had once looked at with quiet pride now shadowed by the slow discovery of encroachment. Subtle attempts had been made to claim the estate for Camilla alone, unscheduled summer bookings logged under her name, small redecoration suggestions slipped into maintenance requests, staff schedules quietly adjusted to favour her presence. Each entry felt like a small theft from the sanctuary she had known since childhood, the one place where family had always come before titles, where children ran free and traditions felt timeless. She traced each alteration with a steady finger, the realization settling like ice in her chest. The Scottish retreat she had protected for decades was being quietly redrawn, and the future queen's rightful connection to it was being quietly severed. The whispered conflict lived inside her every day. She wanted family peace more than anything, longed for the quiet harmony that had once defined their gatherings. Yet she could not ignore the threat to the traditions she had guarded through every storm. Every exclusive booking Every gentle push for more personal time at Balmoral felt like another small erosion of the legacy she had sworn to preserve. Anne had learned to endure public scrutiny with stoic grace, but this quiet pressure from within the family cut deeper, threatening not just her memories, but the spiritual continuity she believed the crown must maintain. After years of service, in the raw days when she watched the old guard fade and new faces rise, Anne had made a private vow to herself. She would ensure the next generation inherited Balmoral's true family legacy, the quiet, timeless place of freedom and reflection that had anchored every future monarch before them. That vow became the foundation of her quiet resolve, the promise that carried her through every difficult moment. Now that same sanctuary stood threatened by internal royal interference, the very people who should have respected it working instead to make it their own. Aides later preserved her journal entries from those months, pages filled with careful handwriting that revealed her quiet determination. Anne had written that Balmoral must remain a sanctuary for the future queen no matter who tries to claim it. The words pressed hard into the paper as if sheer will could hold back the tide. Those lines sat hidden for years, a private testament to the strength that refused to bend even when the pressure came from the highest levels. Charles watched the strain on her face during family gatherings and urged her to stay neutral, his voice gentle but insistent, suggesting that silence would preserve the family bond. His concern came from a place of love and tradition, yet Anne met his pleas with quiet determination. She would stand with Catherine, the one who would one day inherit the weight she had carried so long, no matter the cost to family harmony. The pressure to remain composed clashed against her growing conviction that yielding would only invite more encroachment. The suspense built in the weeks leading up to the confrontation. Anne hesitated before each family event, knowing her support for Catherine would stun the entire family and force the issue into the open. She stood at the threshold of every occasion, weighing whether to speak or stay silent, the future of Balmoral's true purpose hanging on the edge of decisions made in shadowed rooms she could no longer enter. Anne's strength held firm, but the man who now sits on the throne must face the consequences of the war inside his own family. He is king because of duty. Yet Catherine and Anne's united stand proves Charles now stands between the woman he made queen and the women protecting the future. The guilt, the love, the impossible choice, this is the torment that still keeps the monarch awake at night. The urgent call from Catherine came just after midnight, her voice steady yet edged with steel across the encrypted line. Charles listened without interruption as the full details of the Balmoral standoff poured out, and his face collapsed in slow, devastating waves. The king who had spent years balancing every faction now felt the ground shift beneath him. The two women he loved most united against the Queen in open defiance over the family's beloved Scottish home. He set the phone down with trembling hands, the room suddenly too small, the silence too loud, the memory of Catherine's calm refusal replaying endlessly in his mind. He began to pace the long corridors alone, footsteps echoing like accusations against stone that had witnessed centuries of royal heartbreak. Portraits watched him from every wall, Camilla's gentle smile on one side, Catherine's steady gaze and Anne's unflinching loyalty on the other. Three women who had defined his reign in such different ways, pulling him in directions that could never meet. The conflict tore through him without mercy. He stopped before each image, whispering apologies that would never be enough, voice thick with the grief of a king caught between the wife he had chosen and the women protecting the future he had sworn to preserve. In his mind, the imagined private meeting unfolded again, raw and unrelenting. Charles had summoned Catherine to the small chapel where they had once prayed together as family, voice cracking as he begged her to reconsider her stand, to give Camilla the benefit of doubt for the sake of unity. Her reply came back quiet but firm, every word laced with the same unshakable certainty that had driven her to lock the gates, and Anne's silent nod beside her made the refusal even heavier. No shouting, no drama, just the absolute determination to protect Balmoral for the next generation. The rejection landed harder than any argument, leaving Charles staring into the candlelight with the crushing knowledge that his plea had changed nothing. Yet even in the deepest guilt, a secret hope flickered. Alone in the private chapel where candles burned low, Charles whispered to the empty air that he understood the pain on all sides completely. He knew the hurt Camilla carried from years of waiting, knew the fierce loyalty Catherine and Anne felt toward tradition, yet he also knew the rift risked tearing the family apart, in ways no crown could repair. The admission brought no peace, only the bitter awareness that his understanding might not be enough to hold them together. Memories of brighter days surged forward without warning. Family gatherings where laughter rang out freely, Camilla, Catherine, and Anne side by side in easy conversation. Charles watching with quiet pride as the generations seemed to blend. Those golden moments stood in brutal contrast to the permanent fracture the Balmoral battle had just widened, a divide that now stretched across every title and every tradition they once shared. The torment refused to release him. Charles sat at the small writing desk in the chapel, pen hovering over heavy cream paper. He began to draft a private letter to all three women, words careful and desperate, pleading for unity before the story exploded further, and forced choices none of them wanted to make. His hand shook as he wrote, the ink blurring where fresh tears fell. Charles made his plea, but the palace spent years hiding the depth of the battle over Balmoral. They swore Balmoral would remain untouched. Catherine and Anne's stand proves the palace orchestrated a desperate cover-up to hide Camilla's alleged claim. These are the files they never wanted leaked. The hidden files that Catherine and Anne forced into the open, read like a criminal ledger of the crown itself. Suppressed reports detailed unscheduled visits Camilla had arranged through back channels, erased communications that showed calculated attempts to rewrite the Balmoral schedule without the future queen's knowledge, and internal logs that quietly redirected staff and summer timetables to favor her. Presence alone. Every page carried the same chilling pattern, subtle enough to look like innocent grandmotherly affection, deliberate enough to breach the boundaries Catherine had fought so hard to protect. The palace had spent years burying these documents, stamping them with orders to destroy on sight, yet a handful of loyal insiders kept forbidden copies, knowing one day the truth might demand its price. The emotional gut punch struck the night of the confrontation itself. As Catherine and Anne walked away from the locked gates, senior courtiers moved like shadows through the corridors, gathering every scrap of evidence that could expose the claim. Documents were shredded in frantic silence, recordings deleted in real time, files fed into flames that danced higher than the chandeliers above. They did it to protect Camilla's image, to shield the Queen from the one verdict that could never be spun. One aide later described the room smelling of burnt paper and fear. The kind of fear that comes when a single royal stand threatens to unravel decades of carefully constructed harmony. The shocking revelation came from a pre-confrontation meeting, locked behind triple doors. Top aides were given explicit orders to ensure total access for Camilla, the words delivered in hushed urgency, as if Balmoral were a problem that needed solving, rather than the family's most cherished summer sanctuary. They rehearsed the strategy, reviewed the target routines, and made it clear that any resistance would be treated as disloyalty. Catherine had sat through fragments of those discussions in silence, her face a mask, while the machinery of the palace prepared to quietly claim the one estate meant for the next generation. The conflict peaked in a private corridor just minutes before the gates were locked. A senior courtier pulled Catherine aside and warned her of consequences: reduced duties, public isolation, even whispers of title reviews if she blocked the Queen from Balmoral. The threat was delivered in a voice like ice, yet Catherine met it with steady eyes and the single quiet reply that left the aide speechless. The warning only hardened her resolve, turning fear into fuel for the stand that would stun the entire palace. Beneath the threats lay a secret layer even darker. Financial incentives flowed quietly through back channels, generous payments, promised honours, quiet guarantees of security offered to any staff who kept the Balmoral tensions buried. Servants who had overheard the unscheduled visits and redirected schedules were bought off one by one, their silence purchased to preserve the flawless image the monarchy demanded. The palace believed money could seal every mouth, yet the payments only deepened the guilt that now eats at those same insiders. Years of that enforced silence finally cracked the aide who had carried the burden alone. After watching the evidence pile up for months, his conscience split wide open. He leaked the first fragment that started this firestorm, his hands shaking as he sent the encrypted file into the world, knowing the palace's carefully constructed wall was about to come crashing down. Then came the suspense twist no one saw coming. A final sealed document waited inside the dossier like a loaded gun, one page that could force a full public reckoning. A single clause capable of demanding answers the monarchy had spent years avoiding. The chilling line Catherine reportedly delivered, as she turned the key, still echoes through every corridor of power. Balmoral belongs to the future, not the past. Those words hang in the air like a verdict that refuses to die. The cover-up is crumbling, but the cracks are already spreading straight to the heart of the monarchy. One stand. One locked estate. And suddenly, the monarchy's unity stands on trial. From public outrage to secret emergency summits, Catherine and Anne's alliance has opened wounds the crown may never close. The royal family is fighting for its image right now. The global media explosion hit like a thunderclap within minutes of the confrontation leaking. Headlines screamed Catherine and Anne versus Camilla across every continent, the words blazing in blood-red letters while frantic press officers worked through the night trying to strangle the story. Tabloids ran side-by-side images of Catherine's calm defiance and Anne's unflinching support against Camilla's drained expression, while television panels dissected the locked gates in real time, replaying the moment the future queen drew the line until it felt burned into public memory. Every statement the palace issued only poured more fuel on the fire, each denial sounding thinner than the last as the narrative raced ahead of them uncontrollably. Inside the palace walls, a far deadlier battle raged. Senior royals split into opposing camps almost overnight, some arguing fiercely to defend Camilla and dismiss the stand as a family misunderstanding, others speaking in hushed tones that perhaps Catherine and Anne had voiced a truth too long ignored. The division sliced through decades of shared loyalty, leaving tense silences in every corridor and alliances shifting like sand underfoot. Quiet support for Catherine's defense of tradition grew in the shadows, a dangerous undercurrent that threatened to pull the entire family apart. The emotional ripple reached Catherine in the quiet of her private rooms as the full story spread like wildfire. She watched the footage alone, the paper of her prepared statement trembling in her hands, tears coming silently at first, then in waves she could no longer control. Her role as future queen now stood under unprecedented scrutiny. Every boundary she had set for sacred estates questioned, every protective choice painted as defiance. Her own strength, already tested through years of duty, buckled further beneath this fresh weight, leaving those closest to her whispering that the woman who would one day wear the crown was being forced to fight battles no previous queen had faced. Behind locked doors, secret meetings convened at frantic speed. Emergency summits drew up contingency plans in hushed urgency, ways to quietly limit the damage, rewrite the official Balmoral narrative, and prepare statements that would distance the present from the alleged rift without admitting fault. Every option felt like damage control, every discussion laced with the unspoken fear that the monarchy's carefully polished image might crack beyond repair. On the streets and online, the conflict escalated into something unstoppable. Massive public petitions surged by the thousands, demanding Catherine and Anne explain themselves in full view of the world and calling for transparency on the estate's future, while inside the palace courtiers pushed back just as hard for total silence, insisting that any acknowledgement would only feed the fire. The two forces slammed against each other hourly, each convinced the survival of the family's image depended on their chosen path. Beneath the chaos, darker whispers began to circulate through legal circles and constitutional experts. If other royals chose to follow Catherine's example and draw similar lines against perceived interference, the suggestion alone raised the possibility of genuine constitutional questions, the kind that could question the very structure of royal traditions and duties. The idea sent ripples of dread through every layer of government and palace alike, a shadow that refused to fade. History offered no comfort in these hours. Past royal rebellions, abdications, bitter divorces, whispered acts of defiance had shaken the throne before. Yet this moment felt different, more personal, more final. A single stand delivered in silence threatened to redefine the crown not for months, but for generations to come, rewriting the rules of duty and loyalty in ways no one could yet predict. The foundations are trembling, but what happens in the next 24 hours when Catherine and Anne must face the family they just defied will decide everything. The palace is locked down. The family is braced. Catherine now stands at the edge of the most dangerous decision of her royal life: double down on blocking Camilla from Balmoral, or risk losing everything she has built. The next 24 hours will rewrite the royal family forever. Catherine walked the same halls where she had once deferred to Camilla without question, every step now heavy with the weight of her choice and Anne's unwavering support. The familiar corridors felt narrower, the portraits on the walls watching her with silent judgment. She moved slowly, deliberately, as though testing the ground beneath her feet, knowing each footfall carried her further from the safety of conformity and deeper into uncharted territory. The air itself seemed thicker, charged with the consequences she had set in motion the day before. No turning back. No apology waiting to smooth the fracture she had created. In the quiet of their private apartments, Catherine faced William at last. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded final. She stood before him, eyes already shining with unshed tears, and the years of quiet tension finally broke open. Words poured out in a rush she could no longer contain, every buried frustration, every quiet slight, every moment she had swallowed her principles for the sake of the family. William listened without interruption, his own face a map of pain and love and helpless understanding. When she finished, tears streamed freely down her cheeks, not from weakness, but from the sheer relief of speaking the truth aloud after so long. He reached for her hand and held it tightly, the gesture saying what words could not. Whatever came next, they would face it together. An emergency meeting followed at first light. Charles summoned Catherine and Anne to a small, rarely used room deep within the palace, the space stripped of ceremony and filled only with the three of them and the weight of what had happened. Catherine entered without hesitation, meeting her father-in-law's gaze directly. They confronted the future of sacred royal estates, no raised voices, only the raw honesty of people who had once believed the monarchy could hold them all without fracture. Charles spoke of unity, of healing, of the cost to the institution if the rift widened further. Catherine listened, then answered with calm certainty. She had not blocked Camilla out of spite, but out of principle she could no longer betray, and Anne's nod beside her made the refusal even heavier. The conversation ended in heavy silence, all three knowing the path forward would be decided not in that room, but in the fragile choices that followed. Insiders are already leaking fragments of what may come next. Whispers suggest Camilla could quietly step back from certain traditions, fewer overlapping events, a softer presence in family estates not as punishment, but as a private gesture to ease the tension and allow Catherine's future role to breathe again. The move would appease Catherine and Anne while preserving the fragile balance Charles has fought to maintain. Yet every adjustment carries risk, every step back invites fresh scrutiny. Then came the last-minute twist. A single message from Catherine arrived at the palace gates just before dawn, delivered by hand in a plain envelope. Inside lay one final statement, words sharp enough to reignite the entire controversy if released publicly. Charles read it alone, the paper trembling slightly in his grasp. The message carried the power to force answers the family had spent years avoiding, a declaration that could either close the wound or tear it open forever. This single moment has already begun to cement Catherine's image as the defender of tradition, the future queen who chose principle over protocol when the stakes were highest, with Anne's support turning quiet resolve into unbreakable alliance. At the same time, it forces the monarchy to confront its deepest divisions: loyalty tested against change, old order against new reality, personal conviction against institutional survival. The contrast is stark. Two women's quiet stand threatening to reshape everything the crown has built. In the end, the question lingers like smoke over the city. Will loyalty hold the family together, or will principle finally demand the sacrifice no one wanted to make? The Union Jack ripples above a palace forever changed, its stones holding secrets that may still surface when least expected. The full story of Catherine and Anne's stand is still unfolding, and the next revelation will be more explosive than anything we've seen yet. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.